Daily Bible reading, Judges chapter 20, verses 26 through 48. Then all the Israelites, all the army, went up and came to Bethel, and they sat there, weeping before the Lord. They fasted that day until evening, and presented burnt offerings and offerings of well-being to the Lord. The Israelites inquired of the Lord, for the ark of God's covenant was there in those days. And Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, ministered before him in those days. Shall we again take the field against our kinsmen the Benjaminites, or shall we not? The Lord answered, Go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into your hands. Israel put men in ambush against Gibeah on all sides. And on the third day the Israelites went up against the Benjaminites, as before, and engaged them in battle at Gibeah. The Benjaminites dashed out to meet the army, and were drawn away from the town onto the roads, of which one runs to Bethel and the other to Gibeah. As before, they started out by striking some of the men dead in the open field, about 30 men of Israel. The Benjaminites thought, They are being routed before us as previously. But the Israelites had planned, We will take to flight and draw them away from the town into the roads. And while the main body of the Israelites had moved away from their positions and had drawn up in battle order at Baal Tamar, the Israelite ambush was rushing out from its position at Mara Geba. Thus 10,000 picked men of all Israel came to a point south of Gibeah, and the battle was furious. Before they realized that disaster was approaching, the Lord routed the Benjaminites before Israel. That day the Israelites slew 25,100 men of Benjamin, all of them fighting men. Then the Benjaminites realized that they were routed. Now the Israelites had yielded ground to the Benjaminites, for they relied on the ambush which they had laid against Gibeah. One ambush quickly deployed against Gibeah, and the other ambush advanced and put the whole town to the sword. A time had been agreed upon by the Israelite men with those in ambush, when a huge column of smoke was sent up from the town. The Israelite men were to turn about in battle. Benjamin had begun by striking dead about 30 Israelite men, and they fought. They are being routed before us as in the previous fighting. But when the column, the pillar of smoke, began to rise from the city, the Benjaminites looked behind them, and there was the whole town going up in smoke into the sky. And now the Israelites turned about, and the men of Benjamin were thrown into panic, for they realized that disaster had overtaken them. They retreated before the men of Israel along the road to the wilderness, where the fighting caught up with them. Meanwhile, those from the towns were massacring them in it. They encircled the Benjaminites, pursued them, and trod them down from Manoah to a point opposite Gibeah on the east. That day 18,000 men of Benjamin fell, all of them brave men. They turned and fled to the wilderness, to the rock of Rimmon. But the Israelites picked off another 5,000 on the roads, and, continuing in hot pursuit of them up to Gidom, they slew 2,000 more. Thus the total number of Benjaminites who fell that day came to 25,000 fighting men, all of them brave. But 600 men turned and fled to the wilderness, to the rock of Rimmon. They remained at the rock of Rimmon 4 months. The men of Israel, meanwhile, turned back to the rest of the Benjaminites and put them to the sword. Towns, people, cattle, everything that remained. Finally, they set fire to all the towns that were left.